Welcome to the Wye Valley area of outstanding natural beauty here on the English-Welsh border. It's a place where British tourism exploded about 250 years ago with riverboats that would take tourists down the River Wye. This is video 3 of 3, and in this particular video I am going to be heading from Whitestone, which is where I currently am, down south to Chepstow. We will arrive there at the end of this vlog. If you didn't catch the other two videos, you don't need to watch this one, but I will link to them in the description below so you can take a look. In the first video, I travelled from Ross-on-Wye, which is where the boat tours used to start, to the sleepy little village of Symonds Yat East. In the second video, I explored Monmouth, the place where the tourists on the boat trips used to spend the night. It's the halfway point of the tour, and that's exactly what I did as well. So I showed you my hotel, and then we headed south to some of the more industrial areas of the Wye Valley. It is just starting to rain. We're getting a few showers today. This might be another one. But before I pack the camera away and head back to the car, I wanted to say that this view right here is the inspiration for some of Wordsworth's poems. He actually commented that no poem of mine was composed under circumstances more pleasant for me to remember than this. He said that about his poem Lines Composed a Few Miles Above Tintern Abbey in 1798, which is a place we'll be visiting very soon, but it does remain very likely that he actually sat in this spot and composed some of those words. And we have arrived at the next magical place on the riverboat tour, and that is Tintern Abbey, which is behind me there. I'm standing amongst the ruins. It is a truly fascinating place, but imagine for a second coming along the river in one of those tour boats, green hills on both sides, and then rising up from the riverbanks on the right would be these magnificent ruins. Tintern Abbey was originally built in the 1100s by monks, and at some point between then and about 1750 it fell into ruins and was no longer used. It started falling to bits. In fact, when I walked into the site, there is a tent with many of the sections that have fallen off of the building. However, when boats began stopping here along the route, it became a bit of a tourist destination, and the Duke of Beaufort had the interior cleared of all the junk and stones that had fallen down, and a lawn laid inside to allow people to come in and have a look at these incredible ruins. Due to the high winds today, they have closed the inside of the church to visitors because they're concerned that more parts of the ruins might fall down. I guess the main thing that has caused the damage over the years is rain, storms and wind. So I am really pleased to hear that they are trying to protect it now for future generations to see, because if they don't do anything with it, I'm guessing that in another 900 years there'll be nothing left. Right, I am going to head back to the car now, get back on the road and head towards the next stop. I'm now in the Upper Windcliff car park, and I am trying to get to the Eagle's Nest, which I think is this way. So on my way up, I thought I would stop briefly to tell you a little bit more about the guidebook that I've been using to follow along on this trip. It was released in 2020. I will link to it in the description below. It's a little guidebook called the Picturesque Wye Tour, and it goes through all of the detail of William Gilpin's tours of this area down the River Wye. One of the really interesting sections in the book is the picturesque movement, and there it talks about the difference between topographical artists and picturesque artists. So the former was like photographers of today, and the latter, it goes on to say, produce romantic and sublime paintings. And of course, as the boats came down the river, it was packed out with people drawing and painting, trying to capture the scene the best they could. But William Gilpin was a true pioneer of the appreciation of landscapes. It is blowing a gale. I think I'm going to wait a couple of minutes to see if the wind dies down. Unreal. And I was just thinking to myself that the viewpoint here at the Eagle's Nest is summed up perfectly by Joseph Farington in 1803 when he wrote, "The river here forms almost a circle, and the rocks richly wooded an amphitheatre, over which a wide extended country appears spread out, including the River Severn beyond." Without a shadow of a doubt, it's a magnificent area. In the distance I could see Chepstow, so confirmation that it's not too far away. But before we get there, I do have another couple of stops that I hopefully can make if this wind settles down a little bit. I am heading back down the pathway now, about 10-15 minutes. About 15 minutes around the river, and I've parked up. Here's a little sign. I'm here currently. I am trying to get down here and then follow this footpath down towards the riverbanks. There is an abandoned village down there, so I'm going to go and check it out, see if I can find it. I don't think there's very much left apart from a church, and I've heard it's really difficult to get to, so we'll see how we get on. We are coming up to our first sign. Let's see what we've got. Lancaut Nature Reserve and Church. That is what I'm looking for. Making some good progress here, and I'm not sure if those arches are anything to do with the village. Let's just have a look to see. Nothing going on in there. Okay, let's press on. So we look to be getting another shower passing through. I hope it's not a heavy one, because there is nowhere to take shelter. You can see down there the remains of the church wall, and then the River Wye and the beautiful cliffs in the distance there. And here's the church. You can see up there, there is no roof on it, but there is evidence here of headstones that go back to the 1700s, being broken and just placed up against the side of the church. There has been a religious building here on this site since the 7th or 8th century, and let's see if we can go inside. Oh, here we go. Yes, indeed. It's believed that the original church was destroyed by the Vikings when they came up the River Wye. Look at that, absolutely magnificent. But there was a lead font in here that dates back to 1130 to 1140. So it is believed that the church dates back to that period, if not before. They don't know exactly when it was built. But look at that, what a spectacular structure, and a little piece of history here in the Wye Valley. What truly fascinates me is that I haven't seen another soul since I left the car. So that's about a 20-25 minute walk down into the valley here, and there is nobody about. You can tell why it's an abandoned village. So I think I'm going to take a few pictures, maybe a bit of video, and then head back up the hill. I am just a stone's throw now from Chepstow, and I'm walking through somewhere called the Piercefield Estate, which was a set of walking routes created by Valentine Morris that features lovely rolling green hills and interesting viewpoints along the way. It was written in the Wye Valley tour books that this was an unmissable stop. People would come off of the boats and then just walk around this wonderful scenery. To get here, I've driven to the outskirts of Chepstow, walked through a little forested section before it opens up into these incredible green fields. Chepstow Racecourse is on my left, and there's a fairly imposing building up ahead, so I think I'm going to walk as far as that. The buildings that I saw, they are both behind fences, and it looks like they have suffered at some point some very considerable fire damage. I am just imagining that at one point there was nobility or someone very rich and famous lived here on this estate and lived in those mansions that are now just shells of what they were once upon a time. I am heading back towards the car now, and we have one more stop to make, and that is Chepstow, the end point of the Wye Valley River Tour, and the place where many of the tourists would spend the final night of their grand adventure before heading home again the next day. Imagine, if you will, the boat coming around that final bend, that final turn in the river, limestone cliffs awaiting you on both sides, and as you look up to your right, there is the magnificent Chepstow Castle, the main event of the tour, and somewhere I'm going to walk 5-10 minutes along the river now to go and find. Over there is the old Wye Bridge that was opened in 1816. It's the spot of many other bridges that have been here over the years, crossing the River Wye in an area that has some of the most differential tidal ranges in the world. Many bridges that were erected here were either swept away or fell into decay, but this one by John Rastrick, made from cast iron and featuring 5 arches, has stood the test of time. The side that I'm in is situated in Wales, the other side is situated in England, so it is a bridge that quite literally crosses from Wales to England. And then if I come round here, you can see a mysterious hole in the rock over there. It's officially called the Gloucester Hole, and next to it you can see a Union flag, which was first painted in 1935 to mark the Silver Jubilee of King George V. There's been speculation as to what the hole was actually used for. Some people have said that it was a natural hole in the rock that was enlarged by humans, and historically this was as far as the large boats could get, so they would unload their consignment of tea into the cave, and then smaller boats would come along, pick it up and take it upstream. Over here behind me is the beginning of the Wales Coast Path. There we go. We can see a map of Wales there. There's a few different routes. You can follow the yellow path which goes around the coast, or you can cut straight across using the blue path. If you follow the yellow one, it is 870 miles, 1400 kilometers, and this mosaic right here marks the beginning or the end of it, I guess. There we have it. and there is a bench here as well. I'm guessing that the coastal path was created in 2012 and the bench was placed here in 2022. That's one for another time, I think, but behind me here there's a sign saying Chester, 870 miles that way, following that path. Well, I have managed to find the castle. There it is, the main event of the tour. What a spectacular place. It dates back to the 11th century and it is open to the public. So if you're here for the day, I definitely recommend heading inside and taking a look. Also, just across the other side of the road from where I am is the Chepstow Museum that goes into the history of the town, but also the history of the river tour. It includes artifacts and diaries and journals and paintings that were drawn whilst people were on the river cruise itself. I'll also remind you of my inspiration for these videos, and that is the 250-year celebration of William Gilpin's river cruise and the booklet that was created with a whole host of information about the various places, many of which I have visited in these videos. And I will leave you with one incredible quote from the original guidebook that William Gilpin wrote back in 1782, and that is, "The most perfect river views are composed of 4 grand parts: the area, which is the river itself, the 2 side screens, which are the opposite banks and lead the perspective, and the front screen, which points out the winding of the river. They are varied by the contrast of the screens, the folding of the side screen over each other, the ornaments of the Wye, ground, wood, rocks, and buildings and colour." I hope you've enjoyed my journey. Thanks very much for watching.